Picture this. A young monk sits in complete darkness, waiting for the first ray of sunlight to pierce the monastery walls. He has been awake for hours, not because he could not sleep, but because he discovered something that would change his life forever. Something so simple, yet so profound, that it transformed not just his mornings, but his entire existence. Welcome to Echoes of Dharma. Today, I want to share with you the ancient secrets that this monk discovered, secrets that have been passed down through generations of Zen masters, hidden in plain sight for over 500 years. The monk's name was Ijo, and he lived in 13th century Japan under the guidance of the great Zen Master Dogen. Ijo was struggling with something that sounds remarkably familiar. He could not find peace in his daily routine. Every morning, he would wake up with his mind already racing, jumping from worry to worry, from task to task. One morning, Dogen approached Ijo and said something that would echo through the centuries. The way you greet the dawn determines whether you will walk in darkness or light for the rest of your days. Now, I want you to pause and think about this. How do you greet your dawn? When your eyes first open each morning, what is the very first thing that enters your mind? Is it worry about the day ahead, that mental list of everything you need to accomplish, or perhaps that familiar feeling of anxiety about problems you cannot solve? Ijo was not naturally calm or peaceful. He was restless, worried, constantly thinking, just like many of us. Yet through ancient practices, he discovered that his struggles were actually doorways to profound peace. The same solutions that transformed his life over 800 years ago can transform yours today. But here is where Ijo's story takes an unexpected turn that will completely change how you think about your morning routine forever. What happened next changed everything for young monk Ijo. Master Dogen led him to a quiet corner of the monastery garden where an old cherry tree stood bare in the winter cold. The master sat beneath the tree and gestured for Ijo to join him. "Tell me," Dogen said, "what do you see when you look at this tree?" Ijo studied the tree carefully. "Master, I see a dead tree. It has no leaves, no blossoms, no life." Dogen smiled gently. "And what do you hear in your mind right now?" Ijo paused, suddenly aware of the chatter in his head. "I hear thoughts about the morning chores I need to complete, the scriptures I should study, the meditation I should practice. My mind is jumping from one thing to another like a restless monkey." "Ah," said Dogen, "you have discovered what we call the monkey mind. Just like a monkey jumping from branch to branch, your thoughts leap from worry to worry, from task to task, never finding rest. Now, I want you to stop for a moment and observe your own mind as you listen to this story. What thoughts are jumping around in your head right now? Are you thinking about what you need to do after this? Are you judging whether this story is useful? Are you planning your day while trying to listen? This is your monkey mind at work, and recognizing it is the first step toward freedom. In that moment under the cherry tree, Ijo understood something profound. His mind was like the bare tree. It appeared lifeless because he could not see its potential. But beneath the surface, life was waiting to emerge. This is a fundamental teaching in Zen Buddhism. The mind in its natural state is like a wild monkey, constantly agitated and restless. In the Zen tradition, we call this Sava Vikalpa, the tendency of the mind to create endless mental formations, thoughts building upon thoughts, in a never-ending cycle. But here is the remarkable truth that Dogen was about to reveal. You do not need to kill the monkey, you just need to understand it. You do not need to fight your thoughts. You need to learn to work with them skillfully. Fighting the monkey mind is like trying to calm turbulent water by pressing it down. The more you press, the more it churns. Think about this in your own life. How often do you wake up and immediately feel overwhelmed by mental chatter? How often does your mind start racing before your feet even touch the floor? This is not a personal failing. This is simply how the untrained mind operates. It is like a radio stuck between stations, picking up static and fragments of different broadcasts, never quite tuning into clear reception. The monkey mind, Dogen explained, is most active in the morning because it is trying to organize the transition from sleep to wakefulness. During sleep, your conscious mind rests, but upon waking, it suddenly awakens to find a day full of possibilities, responsibilities, and uncertainties. Without guidance, it scrambles to make sense of everything at once. Consider your typical morning. Do you find yourself thinking about conversations you need to have, problems you need to solve, deadlines approaching, relationships that need attention, all before you have even gotten out of bed? This mental scrambling is the monkey mind trying to gain control over an uncontrollable future. It believes that if it can just think about everything hard enough, it can somehow manage the uncertainty of existence. But Dogen taught Ajo something revolutionary. If you do not give your mind direction first thing in the morning, it will create chaos. But if you guide it gently, like training a young animal with patience and consistency, it becomes your greatest ally. This is where the first practice comes in, mindful breathing, or what Zen masters call anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. But this is not just about relaxation or stress relief. In Zen Buddhism, the breath is considered the bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind, between the realm of scattered thoughts and the realm of unified awareness. Dogen taught Ajo to begin each morning with what he called shikantaza, just sitting and breathing. The moment you wake up, before your mind can start its monkey dance, you focus completely on your breath, not changing it, not forcing it, just observing it with complete attention. Now, let me ask you something that might surprise you. When was the last time you paid complete attention to your breath? Not while exercising, not when you were stressed and someone told you to take a deep breath, but simply to observe this miracle that keeps you alive every moment of every day. Most people go through entire days, weeks, even years without ever truly noticing their breath. Yet, it is the most intimate and constant companion we have. Your breath has been with you since the moment you were born. It will be with you until the moment you die. It never asks for attention, never demands recognition, yet it faithfully serves you through every joy and sorrow, every triumph and failure. In Zen Buddhism, we say that if you want to understand the nature of unconditional love, observe your breath. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly, Dogen instructed Ajo. Feel the rise and fall of your breath. When your mind wanders, and it will wander, this is not a failure, but simply the nature of an untrained mind. Gently return to your breath, like a mother calling her child home. No force, no judgment, just gentle guidance back to the present moment. But here is where the practice becomes truly transformative. In Zen Buddhism, breath is not just air entering and leaving your body. It is the manifestation of life itself, the cosmic rhythm that connects you to all existence. Every breath you take has been breathed by countless beings before you. The oxygen you inhale was released by trees and plants, and the carbon dioxide you exhale nourishes those same plants. In this simple act of breathing, you are participating in the great cycle of life that has been continuing for millions of years. Think about this miraculous exchange happening in your body right now. As you breathe in, you are receiving life from the plant kingdom. As you breathe out, you are giving life back to the plant kingdom. You are not separate from nature, you are nature, participating in an ancient dance of mutual nourishment that connects all living beings. Ijo practiced this breath awareness for 7 days, and his experience mirrors what many people discover when they begin this practice. On the first morning, his mind wandered constantly. He would focus on his breath for a few seconds, then suddenly realize he was thinking about breakfast, or his morning chores, or conversations from the previous day. This frustrated him greatly. "I cannot do this, Master," he complained to Dogen after his first attempt. "My mind will not stay still. I am a failure at meditation." But Dogen reassured him with words that every beginning practitioner needs to hear. The wandering mind is not your enemy. It is simply showing you its current habits. Each time you notice your mind has wandered and gently return to your breath, you are not failing. You are succeeding. You are training your awareness. You are teaching your mind to be present rather than scattered. This is a crucial understanding that many people miss. The goal of mindful breathing is not to stop thoughts or achieve some special state of consciousness. The goal is to develop the capacity to notice when your mind has wandered and to gently guide it back to the present moment. This gentle returning is the practice. This is where the transformation happens. By the third day, Ijo could focus for several minutes at a time. He began to notice subtle aspects of his breathing he had never observed before, the slight pause between inhaling and exhaling, the way his whole body participated in each breath, the sense of calm that arose when he stopped trying to control his breathing and simply observed it with curiosity and kindness. By the 7th day, something extraordinary happened. Ijo began to experience what Zen masters call ichinen, one-pointed concentration. His entire being became absorbed in the simple act of breathing. The monkey mind did not disappear completely, but it became like background noise that no longer disturbed his inner stillness. He had learned to rest in the eye of the storm. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds wonderful, but how can something so simple really change my life? Here is what you need to understand about Zen Buddhism. We recognize that the most profound transformations often come from the simplest practices. When you train your mind to be present with your breath first thing in the morning, you are not just practicing a relaxation technique. You are setting the foundation for presence throughout your entire day. Master, Ijo said, after his 7th day of practice, "I feel different. The morning anxiety that used to grip me is gone. My mind feels spacious, like a clear sky after a storm has passed." Dogen nodded knowingly. "You have discovered the first secret of the awakened life. When you master your breath, you master your mind. When you master your mind, you master your day. But tell me, what else have you noticed? Ijo reflected for a moment. I notice that when I begin my day with this practice, I am less reactive to difficulties. When challenges arise, I remember to breathe, and somehow solutions appear more clearly. It is as if the breath practice has taught me to pause between stimulus and response. This pause that Ijo discovered is one of the most valuable gifts of mindful breathing. In that pause between what happens to you and how you respond lies your freedom. In that space, you can choose wisdom over reactivity, patience over anger, understanding over judgment. This is the practical magic of beginning your day with conscious breathing. But what happened next would teach Ijo that mastering the breath was only the first step in a much deeper journey. His newfound inner spaciousness had prepared him for a revelation about the nature of abundance that would come from the most unexpected teacher, a beggar who possessed nothing yet seemed to have everything. 2 weeks after mastering his breath practice, Ijo experienced something that would transform his understanding of abundance forever. He was walking through the monastery courtyard at dawn when he noticed an old beggar sitting by the gate. The beggar's clothes were tattered, his sandals worn through, his bowl completely empty, yet something about him radiated a deep sense of contentment that Ijo had never encountered before. Intrigued and moved by compassion, Ijo approached the beggar. "Good morning, sir. I see you have nothing in your bowl, yet you seem at peace. How is this possible when you appear to have so little?" The beggar looked up with eyes that sparkled with unexpected wisdom. "Young monk, you say I have nothing, but I see everything. Watch carefully." He picked up his empty bowl and held it toward the rising sun. This bowl contains the warmth of the morning sun, the coolness of the dawn air, the sound of birds singing their gratitude for a new day, and the gift of your kind attention. Tell me, how can you say it is empty? This simple exchange shattered everything Ijo thought he knew about abundance and scarcity. The beggar was pointing to something profound that most people miss in their daily lives: the difference between having and seeing, between possession and perception. Now, I want you to pause and consider your own relationship with abundance. When you think about what you have in your life, what comes to mind? Do you immediately think about your possessions, your bank account, your achievements? Or do you think about the miracle of your breath, the gift of consciousness, the beauty that surrounds you every moment? Most of us have been trained to measure abundance by external standards. But what if true wealth lies in our capacity to see and appreciate what is already present? This encounter illustrates a profound principle in Zen Buddhism called shunyata, often translated as emptiness, but more accurately understood as the interconnectedness of all things. The beggar understood something that would become the foundation of Ijo's second practice: that emptiness and fullness are not opposites, but two sides of the same truth. When Ijo returned to the monastery and shared this encounter with Master Dogen, the master's response was unexpected. "The beggar is your teacher," Dogen said with a knowing smile. "He has shown you the difference between having and seeing. Most people have much but see little. The awakened person may have little but sees everything." Think about this distinction in your own life. How often do you rush through your morning routine, without truly seeing what surrounds you? How often do you drink your morning tea or coffee without tasting it, without appreciating the chain of relationships that brought it to your cup? The beggar's wisdom challenges us to recognize that abundance is not about accumulating more, but about perceiving more deeply. This brings us to the second practice, Kata-nyutta, the deep appreciation for interconnectedness. In Zen Buddhism, gratitude is not just about being thankful for good things, it is about recognizing the web of relationships that make every moment possible. It is about understanding what we call pratitya samutpada, a dependent origination, the teaching that nothing exists independently. Master Dogen taught Ajo a morning practice that would revolutionize his understanding of abundance. Each morning, Dogen instructed, after you have stilled your monkey mind with breath, practice seeing like the beggar. Look at 3 simple things in your environment and see not just what they are, but how they came to be. See the relationships, the connections, the invisible threads that bind all existence together. Ajo began with his water bowl. At first, he simply thought, I am grateful for water. But as Dogen guided him deeper, Ajo began to practice what we might call sacred seeing. He began to perceive the clouds that had carried the rain, the mountains that had collected it, the earth that had filtered it, the countless hands that had brought it to his bowl, and the very cosmos that had created the conditions for water to exist. This practice transformed a simple morning ritual into a meditation on the interconnectedness of all life. Suddenly, Ajo realized that his water bowl contained not just water, but the entire universe. The rain that filled it had once been ocean, had once been part of other beings, had once nourished plants and animals across the earth. In drinking this water, he was participating in the great circulation of life itself. But here is where the practice becomes truly transformative. In Zen Buddhism, gratitude is not just about recognizing what supports you, it is about recognizing what you support. As Ajo contemplated his water, he realized that this same water would become part of his body, would nourish his cells, and would eventually return to the earth to nourish other beings. He was not just a recipient of life's gifts, he was an active participant in the great web of giving and receiving. Consider your own morning routine through this lens of interconnectedness. Your morning cup of coffee or tea exists because of farmers who grew the plants, workers who harvested them, transporters who brought them to market, and countless other beings whose labor made your simple pleasure possible. The sun that warmed the plants, the rain that nourished them, the soil that supported them, all of these are present in your morning drink. But the practice goes even deeper. That same sun that warmed the coffee plants is warming your face right now. That same rain that nourished the tea leaves is flowing through your body as blood and lymph. You are not separate from the web of life that created your morning beverage. You are part of it. When you truly understand this, gratitude becomes not just an emotion, but a recognition of reality. After practicing this form of gratitude for a month, Ajo experienced what he described as a complete shift in his relationship with existence. He no longer felt separate from the world around him. Instead, he felt like a conscious participant in the cosmic dance of interdependence. His morning routine became a celebration of connection rather than a mechanical preparation for the day. One morning, as Ajo was practicing this deep seeing with his rice bowl, he had a profound realization. "Master," he said to Dogen, "I understand now why the beggar's bowl seemed full." He was not seeing objects, he was seeing relationships. He was not counting possessions, he was recognizing connections. Every empty space was full of potential. Every moment was full of miracles I had been too blind to see. Dogen nodded approvingly. "You have discovered the second secret of the awakened life. When you see interconnection, scarcity becomes abundance. When you practice true gratitude, you realize you already have everything you need. But tell me, what does this teach you about your own nature?" This question opened another dimension of understanding for Eho. If everything is interconnected, if nothing exists independently, then what we call self is also part of this great web of relationships. The air you breathe was recently part of a tree. The water in your body was recently part of a cloud. The minerals in your bones were forged in ancient stars. You are not a separate entity moving through the world. You are the world expressing itself as a unique pattern of consciousness. This understanding dissolves the artificial boundary between self and other, between inner and outer, between having and being. When you truly grasp your interconnectedness with all life, you realize that caring for the world is caring for yourself, and caring for yourself is caring for the world. There is no meaningful distinction between your well-being and the well-being of the whole. Now, I want you to try this practice yourself. Look around you right now and choose one simple object. Perhaps it is a pen, a cup, a piece of furniture. Instead of seeing it as a separate thing, try to see the web of relationships that brought it into existence. See the raw materials, the workers who crafted it, the natural forces that created those materials, the intelligence that designed it. See how this simple object connects you to the entire world. This is not just a philosophical exercise, it is a practical training in abundance consciousness. When you learn to see the richness of relationships in simple objects, you begin to see the richness of relationships in every aspect of your life. Your morning routine becomes a treasure hunt for connections, for miracles hiding in plain sight. As Ijo deepened this practice, he began to notice something remarkable about his daily interactions with other people. Just as he had learned to see the web of relationships in simple objects, he began to see the web of relationships that connected him to every person he encountered. The cook who prepared his meals, the gardener who tended the monastery grounds, even visitors who came seeking guidance, all were part of the intricate web of support that made his life possible. But this awareness also revealed something that would challenge Ijo in ways he never expected. If all beings are interconnected, if the suffering of one affects the whole, then how should he respond when that interconnection includes difficult people, angry people, people who seem to actively create suffering for themselves and others? This question would lead him to his next great lesson about the nature of compassion, delivered through an encounter that would test everything he had learned about seeing the Buddha nature in all beings. Just as Ijo was beginning to feel confident in his practice of interconnected gratitude, life presented him with a test that would push him to his limits. One morning, a wealthy merchant arrived at the monastery gates in a fury that could be heard throughout the entire compound. His face was red with rage, his voice echoing off the monastery walls as he demanded to speak with the abbot. "I want justice," the merchant shouted, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. These so-called holy men are nothing but thieves and hypocrites. One of your monks stole money from my shop in the village, and I demand immediate action." Ijo watched from across the courtyard as the merchant ranted and raved, his anger seeming to poison the peaceful morning air. Ijo's first instinct was to feel defensive, then angry, then deeply judgmental. "What an unpleasant man," he thought. "How dare he disturb our sacred space with such accusations? How can he speak about our community this way when he knows nothing about our devotion and sacrifice?" But then Ijo remembered something Master Dogen had taught him during their early lessons. Every person you meet is your teacher. The angry person teaches you about anger. The greedy person teaches you about greed. The fearful person teaches you about fear. The question is not whether you will encounter difficult teachers, but whether you will learn from them or simply react to them. This moment introduced Ijo to the third practice, karuna, compassion. But this was not the soft, sentimental compassion that many people imagine when they hear the word. This was the fierce compassion of Zen Buddhism, which sees clearly through the illusion of separateness to the suffering that lies beneath all harmful behavior. As you listen to this story, I want you to think about the difficult people in your own life. Perhaps it is someone who criticizes you unfairly, someone who seems angry at the world, someone whose behavior frustrates or hurts you. How do you typically respond to such people? Do you get defensive? Do you judge them? Do you try to avoid them? Most of us react to difficult people by hardening our hearts, by building walls of protection around ourselves. Master Dogen approached the angry merchant with complete calm, his presence like a still lake that could not be disturbed by the storm raging above it. Instead of defending the monastery or arguing with the accusations, he simply said, "Sir, I can see that you are in great pain. Please, sit with me and tell me what has truly happened in your life." The merchant was so surprised by this response that his anger momentarily subsided, like a fire suddenly deprived of oxygen. No one had ever responded to his rage with such genuine care. As he sat down beside the master, his story began to pour out like water breaking through a dam. His business was failing despite years of hard work. His wife had fallen seriously ill, and the medical treatments were draining their savings. His eldest son had left home after a bitter argument and refused to speak to him. The merchant had been carrying this pain for months, feeling helpless and alone, and his anger at the monks was really anger at a world that seemed indifferent to his suffering. "I do not even know if anyone actually stole from me," the merchant admitted, his voice breaking. "I was so angry at everything, so desperate to find someone to blame for my troubles, that I convinced myself it must be the monks. I needed someone to be responsible for my pain because I could not bear the thought that sometimes terrible things just happen for no reason." This is the essence of what Zen Buddhism teaches about compassion. The merchant's anger was not really about the monks. It was about his own suffering. His blame and accusations were just his pain looking for a target, his heart's desperate attempt to make sense of senseless loss. Think about this in your own life. How often do you encounter someone who is being difficult, only to discover later that they are dealing with loss, fear, illness, or heartbreak? How often have you yourself been short-tempered or impatient when you were actually struggling with something else entirely? Understanding this pattern is the beginning of true compassion. Dogen turned to Ijo later that day and explained the profound lesson hidden in this encounter. Compassion, he said, is not about feeling sorry for others or even about helping them, though these may naturally arise. True compassion is about recognizing that all beings experience suffering and that most of our harmful actions come from our attempts to escape or control that suffering. This understanding is rooted in the first noble truth of Buddhism, dukkha, the recognition that suffering is an inherent part of existence. But here is the crucial insight that transforms our relationships. Most of our suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from our resistance to those circumstances, our desperate attempts to control what cannot be controlled. The merchant was suffering because he was fighting against the reality of his situation. His anger was his way of trying to control what he could not control: his wife's illness, his son's choices, the unpredictable nature of business. When we understand this, compassion becomes natural, not because we approve of harmful behavior, but because we understand the pain that drives it. Master Dogen taught Ijo a morning practice called metta, loving kindness, meditation. Each morning, after breath awareness and interconnected gratitude, Ijo would practice extending compassion in 4 directions: to himself, to his loved ones, to neutral people, and finally, to difficult people. Begin with yourself, Dogen instructed. This is crucial because you cannot give what you do not have. Sit quietly and repeat silently, "May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. May I be happy. May I live with ease." Feel these words not just in your mind but in your heart. Extend genuine kindness to yourself as you would to a beloved friend. This self-compassion practice might seem obvious, but it is revolutionary for most people. We are often our own harshest critics, carrying around an internal voice that judges our every mistake, compares us unfavorably to others, and demands perfection. Learning to speak to yourself with kindness creates the foundation for extending that kindness to others. Then, extend this compassion to those you love easily. Dogen continued. Picture someone dear to you and repeat, "May you be free from suffering. May you be at peace. May you be happy. May you live with ease." Feel your heart opening as you send these wishes to someone you care about. Next, practice with neutral people: the gardener, the cook, visitors you barely know. This teaches you that compassion is not dependent on personal relationship, but on shared humanity. Every being wants to be happy and free from suffering, regardless of whether you know them intimately. Finally, and this is the most challenging part, extend compassion to difficult people. Picture someone who has hurt you, angered you, or disappointed you. This might be the hardest thing you have ever attempted, but repeat with genuine intention. May you be free from suffering. May you be at peace. May you be happy. May you live with ease. When Ijo first attempted this practice with the angry merchant in mind, he found it nearly impossible. How could he wish happiness for someone who had falsely accused his community? But Dogen helped him understand something profound. You are not condoning his behavior, Dogen explained. You are recognizing that his behavior comes from his pain. When you wish for him to be free from suffering, you are wishing for the very thing that would naturally lead him to stop causing harm. A person who is truly at peace does not lash out at others. A person who is genuinely happy does not seek to blame and punish. This is what Zen masters call bodhicitta, the awakened heart that recognizes the Buddha nature in all beings, even when it is hidden beneath layers of pain, anger, and confusion. When you practice loving-kindness meditation, you are not trying to change other people. You are changing your relationship to your own reactions and judgments. After practicing loving-kindness meditation for 3 weeks, Ijo noticed something remarkable happening in his daily interactions. He became more patient with himself when he made mistakes in his studies or meditation. He became more understanding when other monks were having difficult days or struggling with their own practices. Most importantly, he stopped taking other people's moods and behaviors personally. One morning, Ijo encountered a visiting monk who was critical and dismissive of the monastery's practices. In the past, this would have upset Ijo greatly, triggering defensiveness and resentment. But now, instead of reacting to the visitor's words, Ijo found himself wondering what pain or insecurity might be driving such harsh judgments. His heart remained open, even in the face of criticism. "Master," Ijo said during their next teaching session, "I think I understand now. The angry merchant was not my enemy, he was my mirror. His anger showed me my own capacity for anger. His suffering showed me my own suffering. When I saw this clearly, compassion became automatic, not forced." Dogen smiled deeply, the kind of smile that seems to embrace the entire world. "You have discovered the third secret of the awakened life. When you see that all beings are struggling with the same fundamental challenges and the desire for happiness and the wish to avoid suffering, judgment transforms into compassion. When you practice loving kindness, you realize that healing others and healing yourself are the same practice." But Ijo's understanding went even deeper. He realized that compassion practice had changed not just how he related to others, but how he related to his own difficult emotions. When anger arose in his mind, instead of judging himself for feeling angry, he could extend the same loving kindness to his anger that he would extend to an angry person. When fear or sadness appeared, he could hold these emotions with the same compassion he would offer to a frightened or grieving friend. This insight prepared Ijo for his next lesson, which would reveal how the clarity gained through breath, gratitude, and compassion could be focused into the power of conscious intention. But what he was about to learn about setting intentions would challenge everything he thought he knew about the difference between wanting and willing, between hoping and creating. 3 months into his practice, Ijo had developed a morning routine that brought him unprecedented peace and clarity. His breath was steady, his gratitude deep, and his compassion genuine. Yet something was still missing. Despite feeling more centered than ever before, he found himself drifting through his days without clear direction, like a skilled sailor on a calm sea who had forgotten to set his compass. One morning, Master Dogen found Ijo sitting in the monastery garden, staring at the carefully tended plots with a puzzled expression. The garden was a masterpiece of intentional design, every plant placed with purpose, every pathway leading somewhere meaningful, every element contributing to a harmonious whole. "Master," Ijo said, "I have been wondering about something. This garden did not happen by accident. Someone envisioned it, planned it, and tends it daily with clear purpose. But my own life feels like wild growth. Peaceful, yes, but without direction. How does one cultivate a life with the same intentionality as this garden?" Dogen sat beside his student, his eyes twinkling with the satisfaction of a teacher whose pupil has discovered the right question. "Ah," he said, "you have stumbled upon the fourth practice. Tell me, when the gardener plants a seed, what is he really planting?" Ijo considered this carefully. He is planting his intention for what he wants to grow. Exactly. And what makes his intention different from mere wishing or hoping? The gardener does not just hope for tomatoes, Ijo realized. He plants tomato seeds, tends the soil, provides water and care. His intention is backed by consistent action aligned with his vision. This conversation introduced Ijo to one of the most transformative aspects of Zen Buddhist practice, the cultivation of right intention, one of the essential elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. But this was not the kind of intention most people think about when they make New Year's resolutions or set goals. This was what Sanskrit calls sankalpa, divine intention that arises from deep wisdom rather than surface desires. Now, I want you to pause and consider your own relationship with intention. When you wake up each morning, do you have a clear sense of how you want to show up in the world that day? Not what you want to accomplish or acquire, but who you want to be. Most people move through their days reactively, responding to whatever demands attention, like leaves blown by whatever wind happens to be strongest at the moment. Master Dogen explained to Ijo the crucial difference between ordinary goal setting and sacred intention. Goals, he said, are usually about getting something you do not have or becoming someone you are not. They arise from a sense of lack or inadequacy. Sacred intention, however, arises from recognizing who you already are and choosing to express that truth more fully. Think about this distinction in your own life. When you set goals, how often are they motivated by fear, comparison, or a feeling that you are somehow not enough as you are? Sacred intention comes from a completely different place, from the understanding that you already possess everything needed for a meaningful life. And intention is simply about how you choose to express that completeness. Dogen taught Ijo to begin each morning, after breath, gratitude, and compassion practice, with what he called intention gardening. Just as the monastery gardener would walk through his plots each dawn, envisioning what needed tending, Ijo learned to walk through the garden of his own consciousness, planting seeds for how he wanted to grow that day. The practice was deceptively simple. After settling into the spaciousness created by his other morning practices, Ijo would ask himself 3 questions. How do I want to meet this day? What qualities do I want to cultivate? How can I serve the highest good in whatever circumstances arise? Notice that these questions are not about what he wanted to achieve or acquire, but about how he wanted to be. This is the essence of right intention in Buddhism, focusing on the quality of consciousness you bring to life rather than trying to control external outcomes. For his first intention, Ijo might choose presence, the commitment to stay fully engaged with whatever task or person demanded his attention. For his second, he might choose patience, the willingness to allow things to unfold in their own time rather than forcing his agenda. For his third, He might choose generosity, looking for opportunities to give his attention, energy, or skills in service of others. But here is where the practice becomes truly powerful. In Zen Buddhism, intention is not just a mental exercise. It is understood to be a creative force that shapes reality. When you begin your day with clear, conscious intention, you are not just hoping for certain experiences. You are aligning your entire being with the possibility of those experiences. Consider how this works in your own life. Have you ever noticed that when you wake up feeling grateful and optimistic, you tend to notice more things to be grateful for throughout the day? Or when you start the day feeling irritated, you seem to encounter more irritating situations? This is not coincidence. This is the power of intention, shaping perception, and, through perception, experience. Ijo discovered this principle in a very practical way. On days when he set an intention for patience, he found himself naturally breathing deeper when faced with delays or difficulties. On days when he intended to practice generosity, he noticed more opportunities to help others. His intentions were not just wishes. They were instructions to his unconscious mind about what to pay attention to and how to respond. After practicing intention setting for several weeks, Ijo had an insight that surprised him. "Master," he said to Dogen, "I have noticed something strange. The more clearly I set my intentions, the less attached I become to specific outcomes. It is as if having a clear inner direction makes me less dependent on external circumstances going a particular way." Dogen nodded approvingly. "You have discovered something profound. True intention creates freedom, not attachment. When you know clearly how you want to show up in the world, you become less reactive to how the world shows up for you." This paradox is central to Zen understanding of intention. Most people think that having strong intentions means being more controlling or demanding about outcomes. But sacred intention actually creates the opposite effect. It generates such inner stability and clarity that you become more flexible and responsive to whatever life presents. Think about a master martial artist. They enter each encounter with clear intention to remain centered, responsive, and skillful. But they do not try to control every movement of their opponent. Their clear intention allows them to respond fluidly to whatever arises, turning even attacks into opportunities for graceful action. Ijo began to experience this principle in his daily monastery life. When he started each day with the intention to remain open-hearted, he found himself less defensive when receiving criticism about his work. When he intended to practice mindful speech, he naturally paused before responding to difficult conversations, allowing wisdom rather than reactivity to guide his words. One morning, Ijo was assigned to work with a visiting monk who had a reputation for being demanding and critical. In the past, such an assignment would have filled Ijo with dread. But that morning, he had set an intention to practice compassionate listening, to really hear what others were trying to communicate, even if their words were harsh or their manner unpleasant. As the day unfolded, instead of focusing on the visiting monk's criticisms, Ijo found himself listening for the underlying concerns and suggestions. He realized that beneath the harsh exterior was someone who genuinely cared about excellence and was trying, in his imperfect way, to help the monastery improve its practices. By the end of the day, the visiting monk approached Ijo with something resembling gratitude. "You are the first person here who has actually listened to what I have been trying to say," he admitted. "I know my manner is not always pleasant, but I appreciate your patience and attention." This experience taught Ijo something profound about the power of intention to transform not just his own experience, but his impact on others. When he showed up with clear intention to practice compassionate listening, he created space for the visiting monk to be heard and understood, which naturally softened the man's defensiveness and criticism. "Master," Ijo shared with Dogen that evening, "I am beginning to understand that intention is not about controlling what happens to me, but about choosing who I am in relationship to what happens. When I am clear about how I want to be, somehow that clarity seems to invite the best from others as well." Dogen smiled with deep satisfaction. "You have discovered the fourth secret of the awakened life. Clear intention creates a field of possibility around you. When you know who you are and how you want to serve, life begins to organize itself to support that expression. But remember, this is not magic, it is alignment. When your inner direction is clear, you naturally make choices and take actions that move you toward the fulfillment of that direction." This understanding prepared Ijo for his next lesson, which would teach him how to carry his morning clarity into physical movement throughout the day. But what he was about to discover about mindful movement would reveal that every step could become a meditation, every gesture an opportunity for presence. 4 months into his morning practice, Ijo had developed remarkable inner stillness. His breath was steady, his heart open, and his intentions clear. But he began to notice something troubling. The peace he cultivated in his morning meditation seemed to evaporate. The moment he stood up and began his daily activities, it was as if he had 2 separate lives: the serene monk who sat in meditation and the scattered person who moved through his tasks. One morning, while walking from the meditation hall to his work assignment, Ijo encountered something that would change his understanding of practice forever. In a secluded corner of the monastery grounds, he discovered an elderly monk moving in what appeared to be a slow, graceful dance. The monk's movements were deliberate and flowing, each gesture connected to the next in an unbroken chain of awareness. Curious and slightly confused, Ijo approached quietly and watched. The elderly monk was not dancing, he was simply walking, but with such complete attention that each step seemed to contain the entire universe. His feet touched the earth as if greeting an old friend. His arms swayed naturally, but with a quality of presence that made ordinary movement appear sacred. When the elderly monk noticed Ijo watching, he smiled and gestured for him to approach. "Young brother," he said gently, "you look puzzled. What questions are stirring in your mind?" Ijo bowed respectfully. "Venerable sir, I have been practicing meditation for months and finding great peace in stillness. But the moment I begin to move, that peace disappears. How is it that your walking seems as meditative as sitting?" The elderly monk chuckled warmly. "Ah, you have discovered one of the great misconceptions about practice. Many people think meditation is something you do only when sitting still. But tell me, how many hours each day do you spend sitting in formal meditation?" "Perhaps 2 hours," Ijo replied. "And how many hours do you spend moving, walking, working with your hands?" Ejo calculated quickly. Probably 14 or 15 hours. So you spend most of your waking life in movement, yet you practice awareness for only 2 hours? The elderly monk's eyes twinkled with gentle humor. No wonder your peace seems fragile. You have been trying to contain the ocean in a small cup. This encounter introduced Ejo to the fifth practice, mindful movement, or what Zen masters call kinhin, meditation in motion. But this was not about special exercises or complicated techniques. This was about bringing the same quality of attention to movement that he had learned to bring to breathing. As you listen to this story, I want you to become aware of your own body right now. Are you sitting, standing, or lying down? However you are positioned, notice the subtle movements happening even in stillness. Your breath moving your rib cage, your heart beating, small adjustments in posture. Your body is never completely still. It is always engaged in the dance of life. The elderly monk, who introduced himself as Brother Koan, explained to Ejo that the separation between meditation and daily life is an artificial one. In Zen Buddhism, we understand that consciousness does not disappear when you stand up from your cushion. The awareness you cultivate in sitting meditation can be carried into every movement, every gesture, every physical action. Brother Koan began teaching Ejo the art of mindful walking. We will start with the most basic movement, he said. Walking is something you do thousands of times each day. Yet how often do you truly pay attention to it? They began with what seemed absurdly simple, taking a single step with complete awareness. Lift your foot slowly, Brother Koan instructed. Feel the shift of weight to your standing leg. Notice how your body naturally adjusts to maintain balance. Place your foot down gently, as if you are blessing the earth with your presence. At first, Ejo felt self-conscious and awkward. The deliberate slowness felt forced and unnatural. But Brother Koan encouraged him to continue. You are not trying to walk in a special way, he explained. You are simply paying attention to walking in a complete way. Every step you have ever taken has involved these same movements, that you are just noticing them fully for the first time. As Ejo continued this practice over several days, something remarkable began to happen. The mindful walking started to feel less like an exercise and more like a return to something natural he had forgotten. He realized that as a small child, he had walked with this kind of attention, fully absorbed in the simple miracle of movement. Think about your own relationship with movement. When you walk from one room to another, are you usually thinking about where you are going, or are you present with the actual experience of walking? Most of us spend our movement time lost in thought, using our bodies merely as transportation for our busy minds. Brother Koan taught Ejo that mindful movement is based on a fundamental principle of Zen Buddhism, the unity of body and mind. In Western thinking, we often imagine the mind as separate from the body, as if consciousness is a passenger riding in a physical vehicle. But Buddhist understanding recognizes that body and mind are not two separate things. They are two aspects of one integrated whole. When you move with awareness, Brother Koan explained, you are not just exercising your body or calming your mind. You are practicing the unity of being. Every mindful step, every conscious gesture strengthens the connection between your inner awareness and your physical expression. This understanding transformed how Ejo approached his daily work assignments. Whether he was sweeping the courtyard, carrying water, or tending the garden, he began to practice what Brother Koan called meditation in action. Instead of rushing through tasks to get them finished, he learned to find meditation within the tasks themselves. When sweeping, Ijo would focus completely on the sensation of the broom in his hands, the rhythm of the sweeping motion, the sound of leaves and debris being gathered. He discovered that any repetitive activity could become a doorway into presence if approached with the right quality of attention. Now, I want you to try this yourself right now. Whatever position you are in, make one small, conscious movement. Perhaps lift your hand and place it somewhere else, or adjust your posture slightly, but do it with the same quality of attention you might bring to a sacred ritual. Notice how even the simplest movement can become a meditation when infused with awareness. As Ijo deepened his practice of mindful movement, he began to understand something profound about the nature of grace. Grace, Brother Koan explained, is not something that descends from above. It is something that emerges from complete presence. When you move with total attention, even the most ordinary actions become expressions of the sacred. This teaching was illustrated perfectly one morning when Ijo was assigned to help serve tea to visiting dignitaries. In the past, such formal occasions made him nervous and clumsy. But now, having practiced mindful movement for weeks, he approached the tea service as a moving meditation. Each movement was deliberate and conscious, lifting the teapot with both hands, pouring with steady attention, offering each cup as if presenting a gift to a beloved friend. The visiting dignitaries were visibly impressed, not just by the ceremony, but by the quality of presence Ijo brought to each gesture. Later, one of the visitors approached Master Dogen and commented, "That young monk who served tea, there was something extraordinary about his presence. Every movement seemed to be a prayer. How do you train such grace?" Master Dogen smiled. "We do not train grace," he replied. "We simply remove the obstacles to grace. When the mind is still and the heart is open, grace expresses itself naturally through any action performed with love and attention." This comment helped Ijo understand that mindful movement is not about perfecting technique or achieving some special state. It is about removing the barriers, the rushing, the distraction, the unconsciousness that prevent the natural grace of awareness from expressing itself through physical action. Brother Koan taught Ijo that different types of movement could cultivate different qualities of awareness. Slow, deliberate movements, like walking meditation, developed patience and presence. Flowing movements like Tai Chi cultivated harmony and balance. Even vigorous work, when performed mindfully, could become a practice of energy and enthusiasm. But perhaps the most profound lesson came when Brother Koan taught Ijo about what he called invisible movement, the countless micro-movements and adjustments the body makes constantly to maintain balance, circulation, and comfort. Even when sitting still in meditation, your body is engaged in an intricate dance of small movements, breathing, circulation, neural activity, cellular regeneration. When you become aware of this invisible movement, Brother Koan explained, you realize that there is no such thing as true stillness. Life is movement, and movement is life. The question is not whether to move or be still, but whether to move consciously or unconsciously. After 3 months of practicing mindful movement, Ijo experienced an integration he had never imagined possible. His morning meditation and his daily activities began to feel like one continuous practice. The peace he cultivated in sitting naturally carried into walking, working, and interacting with others. Master Ijo said to Dogen during one of their evening conversations, "I used to think that meditation was preparation for life, and life was what happened between meditations. Now I understand that meditation and life are the same thing when lived with awareness." Dogen nodded with deep satisfaction. "You have discovered the fifth secret of the awakened life. When you bring consciousness to movement, every step becomes a prayer, every gesture becomes an offering, every action becomes an expression of your Buddha nature. The monastery is not separate from the world. It is a training ground for bringing meditative awareness into every aspect of existence." This understanding prepared Ijo for his final morning practice lesson, which would reveal how even the most basic act of nourishment could become a profound spiritual teaching. What he was about to learn about mindful eating would complete his understanding of how every moment, every action, every breath could become a gateway to awakening. 6 months into his practice, Ijo had integrated breath, gratitude, compassion, intention, and mindful movement into a seamless morning routine. Yet there remained one aspect of daily life that still felt ordinary, almost mechanical: eating. Despite all his progress in cultivating awareness, meals remained rushed affairs, where he barely tasted his food, lost in thought or conversation. This changed dramatically one morning when Master Dogen invited Ijo to participate in a formal temple meal called oryoki, a traditional Zen eating practice that transforms the simple act of nourishment into a profound spiritual ceremony. As Ijo entered the dining hall, he was struck by the silence and reverence that filled the space. The monks moved with the same deliberate awareness he had learned to bring to walking, but now applied to handling bowls, chopsticks, and serving implements. Before the meal began, Master Dogen spoke quietly to the assembly. "We are about to receive the gift of nourishment. This food before us represents the life force of countless beings, plants that transformed sunlight into energy, soil organisms that enriched the earth, farmers who tended the crops, and all the elements of nature that made this meal possible. We eat not just for personal pleasure, but to receive the strength needed to serve all life." As you listen to this description, I want you to pause and consider your own relationship with food. How often do you eat while distracted, reading, watching television, scrolling through your phone, or thinking about other things? How often do you actually taste your food versus simply consuming it? Most of us have become so disconnected from the act of eating that we miss one of life's most intimate and essential practices. The oryoki ceremony began with a period of silent contemplation. Each monk held their empty bowl and reflected on what Master Dogen called the 4 gratitudes. Gratitude for the beings whose lives became this food. Gratitude for those who prepared it. Gratitude for the conditions that made it possible. And gratitude for the opportunity to receive nourishment that would support their practice. When the food was served, Ijo watched in amazement as the senior monks received each portion with the reverence usually reserved for sacred objects. They did not simply take food, they received it as a gift, acknowledging each serving with a slight bow and a moment of appreciation. Brother Koan, the elderly monk who had taught Ijo about mindful movement, sat beside him and whispered gentle instructions. Before you take your first bite, pause and really see what is before you. Notice the colors, the textures, the arrangement. This rice was once a seed that absorbed rain and sunshine. These vegetables grew from the earth through the miracle of photosynthesis. You are about to become one with these gifts of nature. When Ijo finally took his first bite, following Brother Koan's guidance to chew slowly and deliberately, something extraordinary happened. The simple rice, which he had eaten thousands of times before, exploded with flavor and texture he had never noticed. He could taste the minerals from the soil, feel the life force that had animated the grain, sense the care that had gone into its cultivation and preparation. This is what Zen Buddhism calls Buddha in the rice bowl. The recognition that every meal is an opportunity to commune with the fundamental interconnectedness of existence. When you eat with complete presence, you are not just nourishing your body, you are participating consciously in the great web of life that sustains all beings. Think about this profound truth. Every bite of food you take represents the transformation of life into life. The apple you eat was created through the marriage of earth, water, air, and sunlight. The bread on your table contains the life force of wheat that grew in fields you have never seen, tended by farmers whose names you will never know. When you eat mindfully, you are acknowledging your intimate connection to the entire ecosystem of the planet. Brother Koan taught Ijo that mindful eating involves what Buddhist tradition calls the 5 contemplations, reflecting on the work that brought the food to your table, examining whether your virtue and practice make you worthy of receiving such gifts, recognizing greed as the primary obstacle to spiritual development, understanding food as medicine that heals and nourishes, and accepting nourishment in order to support your spiritual practice and service to others. These contemplations might sound formal or religious, but they point to practical wisdom about how conscious eating can transform both your relationship with food and your understanding of your place in the world. When you truly consider the work that brings food to your table, the farmers, truck drivers, store clerks, and countless others whose labor makes your meal possible, gratitude becomes automatic rather than forced. As Ijo continued practicing mindful eating over the following weeks, he began to notice profound changes that extended far beyond meal times. His digestion improved dramatically as he learned to eat more slowly and chew more thoroughly. He found himself naturally choosing foods that truly nourished his body rather than just satisfying cravings. Most surprisingly, he discovered that eating less food while paying more attention left him feeling more satisfied than eating larger portions while distracted. But the deepest transformation was in his understanding of interdependence. Every meal became a meditation on connection to the natural world, to the web of human cooperation that makes modern life possible, and to the countless beings whose lives and labor contribute to his sustenance. One morning, while eating a simple bowl of vegetable soup, Ijo had a profound realization. "Master," he said to Dogen later that day, "I understand now that there is no such thing as eating alone. Even when I sit by myself with a bowl of food, I am sharing a meal with farmers, rain clouds, earthworms, and countless other beings. Every bite is a communion with life itself. Dogen smiled with the deep satisfaction of a teacher whose student has grasped an essential truth. You have discovered something that transforms not just eating, but living. When you recognize the interconnectedness in something as simple as a meal, you begin to see the interconnectedness in everything. This awareness is the foundation of what we call ecological consciousness, the understanding that your well-being and the well-being of all life are inseparable. This awareness began to influence how Ijo approached food choices. He found himself naturally drawn to foods that were grown locally and seasonally, not out of rigid rules, but from an intuitive understanding that eating in harmony with natural cycles deepened his connection to the earth. He wasted less food, understanding that throwing away nourishment was dismissing the gifts of countless beings. Now, I want you to try this practice yourself. The next time you eat something, whether it is a formal meal or just a snack, begin by pausing for 30 seconds before you take your first bite. Look at the food and try to imagine its journey to your plate. Consider the soil, water, and sunlight that nourished it. Think about the hands that planted, tended, harvested, transported, and prepared it. Then eat your first bite with complete attention, noticing flavors and textures as if you were tasting this food for the first time. Brother Koan taught Ijo that different foods could become teachers of different spiritual qualities. Simple grains like rice and wheat taught patience and humility. They required long cultivation and careful preparation, yet provided steady, reliable nourishment. Fresh fruits taught appreciation for seasonal rhythms and the sweetness that comes from perfect timing. Vegetables from the monastery garden taught the rewards of daily care and attention. Even the act of preparing food became part of Ijo's spiritual practice. When he was assigned kitchen duties, he approached chopping vegetables with the same mindfulness he brought to walking meditation. Each cut was deliberate and conscious, each ingredient treated with respect and gratitude. The kitchen work taught Ijo something profound about the relationship between serving and being served. When he prepared food for his fellow monks, he was not just completing a chore, he was participating in the ancient practice of nourishing the Sangha, the spiritual community. Every meal, prepared with love and attention, became an offering, a way of supporting the spiritual practice of others. After practicing mindful eating for several months, Ijo experienced what he described as a complete transformation in his relationship with his body and the physical world. Food was no longer just fuel or pleasure. It was medicine, teacher, and sacrament. His body felt lighter, yet more grounded, nourished, not just physically, but spiritually. One evening, as Ijo was reflecting on his 6 months of morning practice, he realized something remarkable. The 6 practices, breath awareness, interconnected gratitude, compassion meditation, intention setting, mindful movement, and conscious eating, had woven themselves into a seamless tapestry of awareness that informed every aspect of his daily life. "Master," he said to Dogen during their final evening teaching session, "I began this journey thinking I was learning 6 separate practices. Now I see they are all expressions of one fundamental practice, the practice of presence. Whether I am breathing, eating, walking, or setting intentions, I am always practicing the same thing, showing up fully to what is actually happening in this moment." Dogen nodded with profound satisfaction. "You have discovered the ultimate secret of the awakened life. All practices, all teachings, all spiritual techniques are simply different doorways into the same room, the room of complete presence. When you live with this kind of awareness, every moment becomes sacred, every action becomes service, and every experience becomes a teacher." This understanding prepared Ijo for the integration phase of his practice, a learning how to carry the clarity and peace of his morning routine into the full complexity of daily life in the world beyond the monastery walls. But what he had learned about presence would prove to be more than just a personal transformation. It would become a gift he could offer to anyone ready to wake up to the miracle of ordinary existence. 1 year later, Ijo had become known throughout the region not for his scholarship or mystical experiences, but for something far more precious, the quality of presence he brought to every interaction. Visitors to the monastery would comment on the young monk, who listened with complete attention, worked with graceful efficiency, and radiated a peace that seemed to touch everyone around him. Master Dogen watched his students' transformation with quiet satisfaction. Ijo had discovered what every genuine spiritual practice ultimately reveals, that awakening is not about achieving special states or supernatural powers, but about showing up fully to ordinary life with extraordinary awareness. The 6 morning practices had woven themselves into one seamless expression of consciousness. Ijo would begin each day with mindful breathing, establishing presence. He would practice interconnected gratitude, recognizing abundance. He would extend compassion to all beings, opening his heart. He would set clear intentions, directing his energy. He would move mindfully through his activities, embodying awareness. And he would eat consciously, honoring the web of life that sustained him. But perhaps most importantly, Ijo had learned that these practices were not meant to remain within monastery walls. They were training for bringing awakened awareness into every aspect of human experience, family relationships, work challenges, community service, and the countless ordinary moments that make up a human life. As our time together comes to an end, I want to leave you with the same challenge Master Dogen gave to Ijo. Begin tomorrow morning with just one of these practices. Perhaps mindful breathing, perhaps gratitude, perhaps setting a clear intention for your day. Practice it for 30 days with genuine commitment. Notice how this single thread of awareness begins to weave itself into the fabric of your entire life. The path of awakening is not about perfection. It is about presence. Your journey begins with your very next breath.